Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to discuss unit rates. You'll see on the video already that there is a definition up there for a unit rate. If you could go ahead and get that copied onto your paper, I'll start your notes in just a second. But it's when we're unit rates, we deal with ratios, and we're going to, or rates is what they can be called as well. And a unit rate is when a ratio is expressed as a unit of one. We've kind of touched base on this a little bit, just intermittently talking about unit rates. I had you do a challenge practice of 2 questions the other day, and some of you did really well and understood it very quickly, and then others of you are struggling, which is understood because I haven't taught it yet. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at a unit rate. So if you have a ratio or a rate, say for example, let's talk about cars. You guys have all ridden in cars, and you know that there's a speed limit or whatnot. Say that you were traveling and you drove 500 miles, and it took you, those 500 miles to drive, it took you, I don't know, let's say it took you 5 hours. So you drove 500 miles with your folks, and it took you 5 hours to do that. I hope not, because that would mean that you were driving over 100 miles an hour. But, for the sake of math, we'll use it. So say you drive 500 miles and it took you 5 hours to do that. When we're talking about a unit rate, it wants to know how many miles did you drive in 1 hour? How many miles did you travel in 1 hour? That is the unit rate that we're looking for. So we know you drove 500 miles in 5 hours. And here comes another term that we've been talking about intermittently but not gotten into the meat of it yet, is the word proportion. So we're going to use a proportion. 500 miles is to 5 hours as how many miles? We don't know. So we're going to use a variable, what is called a variable. It's a letter. We usually use the letter X. It doesn't have to be the letter X, but we usually use the letter X. We're going to use the X to represent what we don't know, because we don't know how many miles per hour that is yet. So we're going to set up a proportion. We're going to take our ratio of 500 miles in 5 hours, and we want to know how many miles is that per hour. When you're looking for a unit rate, it's always for 1 unit. So per hour, per can of soda, if you're finding a cost of soda, per ticket, individual pricing, or individual mileage, or individual words per minute, using the example that we used as a challenge the other day. Anyway, looking at this, solving this proportion, there's 2 different ways to do it. I'm going to show you the more complex way first, because when we go to do proportions that don't have a denominator of 1, you're going to have to learn how to do it. You're going to have to learn to solve it this way. And we talked about this the other day. Cross multiplying. So you have 5 times x, which gives you 5x. Anytime a number and a letter are written together, it means you're multiplying. And then we cross multiply the other way, which is 500 times 1. So 5x is going to equal 500, because 500 times 1 is 500. Now when we're solving, this is called an equation. And again, we're going to talk more about these as we go through, but you need to understand this is called an equation. When we are solving for the value of x, x has to be alone. Currently it's with a 5, and it is attached by multiplication. You guys told me the other day that you knew how to undo multiplication, and you told me that you undo it using division. Well, to get the x by itself, we have to divide by 5 to get rid of it, because it's currently attached by multiplication. To undo multiplication, you have to use division. And we want to get rid of the 5, so what you do to one side, you must also do to the other. These 5s, 5 divided by 5 leaves you with 1x, x is now by itself, and then you do the division problem here. 500 divided by 5, of course, is 100. So to answer how many miles do you drive in 1 hour, our value for x we now see is 100. So you would drive 100 miles per per hour. Often the per is written if it's not mileage. It's usually miles per hour is another way to look at that, to write that unit rate. Of course, if you have this is the way that we're going to be solving proportions in days to come. So you have to be familiar with this. But if you look at this proportion, this one in particular, when you're finding unit rates, if you have a denominator of 1, basically to solve for x, all you have to do is divide this problem. This is a fraction. This bar says divide. Yes, that fraction bar says divide. So if you're finding a unit rate where your denominator is 1, because a unit rate's denominator is always 1, when you're finding a unit rate, you can shortcut it and just say 500 divided by 5 and go straight to x being 100. So your answer would be 100 miles per hour. I show this for unit rates because it works, because of the denominator being 1. When we start working with solving proportions later where the denominator is not 1, you will have to be able to come back and solve this way. So I'm showing you both ways. I encourage you to use this way so that you get used to the process, because it will be coming up that you won't have a choice. You'll have to do it this way. But while we're working with unit rates, if you would prefer, since the denominator is 1, you can use the shortcut of 500 divided by 5 to solve for x, a shortcut way. Let me give you one more example, and then we will have discussion in class about them later. So, say you're at the store. No, say you want to go to a concert, and you're taking 4 friends with you. And your mom's buying the tickets, and she's buying you 4 tickets. And the total of those tickets comes to $32. $232 for 4 tickets. But your mom, it's not your birthday or anything, so she says that your friends have to pay her back. So we need to figure out how much is 1 ticket. You are finding a unit rate. You know together all 4 of these tickets cost $232. How much is it for one of them so that your friends can pay your mom back? So you set up the proportion. You set up the ratio. $232 is a cost for 4 tickets. What is the cost for 1 ticket? So 232 is to 4, that's how that's read, as what is to 1. So again, long way, 4x equals 232. We need the x by itself, so we have to divide both sides by 4. 4's cancel, leaving the x by itself, which is what we want. How many 4's are in 232? There are 5 4's in 23, leaving you with 32. There are 8 4's in 32. So x equals 58. So you are paying $58 per ticket. Again, if you're looking at it because you have a unit of 1 here, if you're looking at it in the quote-unquote shortcut manner because we have a unit rate, we have a denominator of 1, then you can simply say 232 divided by 4 equals x, because this is what we're trying to find, x. So then x is going to equal, again, 232 divided by 4 is 58. So your friends are paying $58 per ticket. Okay? One little last note, anytime you're dealing with money, it always goes on the top. Money goes on the top. All right? Okay, we'll talk about this more in class today. I look forward to seeing you all this morning, and I will chat with you later.